You are still watching Ways Now. World Freedom Day is a federal holiday observed on November 9th. On this day in 1989, the momentous event in history took place when the Berlin Wall was abolished. Now, the wall separated families and communities from for almost 3 decades. So today it marks the rise of democracy and freedom and the fall of communism in the Eastern Europe or in Eastern Europe. So hello everyone, it's a free world. All right, so because we don't have so much time, right, we had to remember we had the topic on accountability and leadership, and we're referencing the EFCC boss being sentenced to the Kuje Correctional Center. And I remember a caller yesterday called Paul, said what happens when the EFCC boss goes to jail and comes back? Will he still continue as the chairman of EFCC since he's now an ex-convict? So we decided that we cannot answer that question. So for our What's in the News segment today, we're discussing this EFCC's boss sentencing. And we have Liborous Oshoma joining us from Lagos. Thank you so much for joining us, Oga Liborous. Hello, you're there?
Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us. So, you've been following the news, and the EFCC boss was sentenced to Kuje Correctional Center. First of all, can you just quickly give us establish the story for us, because we believe that he flouted a rule that the court had ruled that he should return certain items back to someone. He did not, and since 2018, that's why this sentencing has happened, that he has to go to the correctional center. So maybe you help us establish the story quickly.
Thank you. Every court has an inherent power to punish defaults of their orders, and so we call it contempt proceedings, either in facial or ex facial Korea. That's either in the face of the court or outside of the court. And so when the court gives an order and directing you to do something, and if you fail to do that thing, the person whose favor that order was given can file what we call Form 48 and Form 49. Those forms are served on the person who has violated that order to show cause why the person should not be committed to prison for violating a court order. We'll call it contempt. Why should not be cited for contempt? So in this case, an order was given against the EFCC since 2018 that a Range Rover vehicle seized from a defendant and 40 million naira held in his account should be released to him. And since that 2018, EFCC did not obey that court order, from even the allegations from the defendant and even the EFCC. That court order was not obeyed. And so Form 48 and Form 49 were filed before the judge that gave that order. And so yesterday, the judge cited the EFCC chairman for contempt. But the question is, EFCC is saying that this current chairman, that when this current chairman came aboard, immediately he approved the release of the car in June this year, and then also approved the necessary documents for the release of that money, and that it is the bureaucracy involved that is delaying the release of the money. So, and that also that the Form 48 and Form 49, asking them to show cause were not served on them, and so they have gone on appeal. That's basically the foundation of all of this. But a lot of lawyers also are happy that this has happened, because no agency is above the law, and if an agency of government is said to have violated the law, reasonable steps can be taken to ensure that agency of government is brought before the law and appropriate sanctions melted out. So that's basically the fulcrum of all of what transpired yesterday.
Awesome, because we had talked about the abuse of power yesterday, and we're saying that how do we hold those people in authority accountable? And I like the fact that you said a lot of lawyers are happy about this, because this is what I hear most lawyers always complain about: rule of law not being followed through, right? So if So let's just quickly fast forward. What then happens if this EFCC boss goes to the Kuje prison and comes out? What then becomes of his position? And how do
EFCC, EFCC as an agency is the organization that is cited for contempt. Let's put it in perspective.
Yes,
the EFCC as an agency is cited for violating. No, the EFCC is cited for violating of a court order. But the EFCC, being a non-juristic person, has arms. He works with arms and legs, and the arms and the legs are the chairman of the EFCC and the people that work in there. So that order against EFCC will now have to be directed against the chairman, because the EFCC as a body is a non-juristic person. So it is not that the chairman per se has committed an offense that warrants the him being charged to court and jailed. It is the organization that is holding. So if, for example, the EFCC chairman, now they have appealed that judgment or that order, they have appealed that order, and the Court of Appeal will deal with it decisively. If the EFCC chairman goes to Kuje prison for contempt and comes back, he will still hold his position. Then you can now begin to say the ground for investigation against him will be abuse of power, that they did not comply with a valid court order, and for failure to comply with a valid court order, that it does not that for such an organization, he does not merit holding that office, because the office is one that encourages the promotion of the rule of law. But the chairman also has said that since he came into office, that he has maintained the highest standard of compliance with the rule of law and a robust relationship with between agencies of the judiciary, and so that this is just a misconception. And moreover, that he wasn't in the office when that order was, whether that judgment was given. And that when he came, he ensured that that judgment was complied with. But unfortunately, you cannot be citing the man who is no more in office for contempt. It is the current person who is occupying the office that would be cited for contempt.
Wow.
The only thing I wanted to ask was the issue Mary kept having. I know based on paper and what they have in the documentation, it was 40 million. Or how does that man get the value of the 40 million that he lost in 2018 as 40 million today? Isn't there any way a lawyer, this lawyer, can fight for him to get the value of that same 40 million today?
No, what happens is the money, remember, the money is not a loan that you now begin to calculate interest on. The money is a money deposited either as exhibits. So it is, if the money is kept in an interest yielding account, then the court can order the EFCC to account for the money and the accrued interest. In that case, both the fund and the accrued interest will be handed over back to the owner of the money. That is why in some judgment, the court will say judgment in the sum of 40 million and interest at so and so percentage on that sum until final liquidation, so that that money would be yielding interest as long as the defendant is holding on to it. So in this same case, the money, from what we gathered, was kept as exhibits, and after the investigation and you found out that the man was not culpable, the best thing would have been to release the money to him. Keeping the money either in the custody of the EFCC, it is now left for the court to say that, okay, that money was kept somewhere, let interest be paid on the sum, so that there would, because of the time value of money, that the EFCC are liable to pay interest on it. It is in the court to state. And then that might be in the body of the judgment also. If you read the body of the judgment, the original judgment of 2018, definitely there will be a clause in that judgment that interest on the sum until it is handed over. The
Thank
court
you.
usually, when you ask for it, the court usually adds that. So, but if you didn't ask for it, you can now ask the court to go and add it to that judgment that has been delivered, because the court becomes factus officius the moment the judgment is delivered.
All right, thank you so much, Liborous Oshoma. Thank you for your time this evening with us. Was really good having you to clarify all of this. Thank you. All right, so we'll go on a break now. When we come back from the break, we'll be discussing the film industry and, of course, gender equality in that industry. Stay with us. We'll be right back.